Hi there, guys. This is Chris Coney speaking, and welcome to this week's edition of the Wise Crypto Sunday Special. Now, I have no guest today, but the idea for today's episode did come from Mr. Juan Villaverde himself. So I've taken that idea and I've turned it into the Sunday Special that I'm going to present to you today. So I've called this, it's not an asset bubble, it's a cash bubble. So this is basically what Juan and I discussed. And when he gave me this insight, I thought, this is genius. Let's give this as a Sunday Special. So here's how it goes. The everything bubble has been spoken about in the financial press for years. This is the idea that asset prices across the board, they've kind of severed their link with reality, with PE ratios in the stock market going far beyond what we used to call even overvalued. So they've gone way beyond reasonable. We've got retail price inflation and the rapid increase in asset prices. They're more of an emergent effect than the root cause. So retail price inflation and the asset price inflation, they are the emergent effect of a deeper root cause. The root cause of the problem is the Fed's money printing, but seldom do we take that a step further and realize that we blame the money printer, but we don't take it a step further and realize that that is the bubble we're looking for. It's a cash bubble. So I'd call it's almost a reverse bubble. When I was trying to get my head around this, I'm like, it is a reverse bubble. It's like a negative bubble. Typically, in a bubble, you have an asset that skyrockets in price, and the bubble bursts at the top, and then the price rapidly comes back down to what we would call a reasonable level. But the cash bubble is the opposite, right? Cash has crashed in price, creating a negative bubble. If that bursts, what happens? Well, the price of cash will rapidly go back up, meaning we'll get fewer assets for our money. That's the opposite. That's like deflation, isn't it? So we would normally look at this thing the other way around and say that asset prices were crashing when money printing is out of control. But consider instead that it's the rapid fall in the value of cash that will be correcting upwards when the bubble bursts. It literally is flipping your thinking upside down. So typically, you only need a larger money supply when the velocity of money is high, i.e., when the same dollar is involved in many transactions in the same day. So that's the classic example I gave of a customer that gives the money to the Uber driver, who then gives the money to the gas station, right? Who then pays an employee, who might even be the partner of the original customer. So that cash cycles 4 times. That's a velocity of 4 in that case. So why do people transact, though, was the next question I asked myself. In the Austrian School of Economics, value is subjective. So a transaction, it starts with the arising of a human desire that wishes to be satisfied. I mean, there's no other economic activity that doesn't come from that. That has to happen first. A thinking, feeling human being has to have a desire they then act out, right? So they make that desire known somehow. And I've been in digital marketing when I started my career. So I studied, Google search marketing and stuff like this. And people literally type their intentions into the Google search engine. That's how the consumers let their desire be known. So say someone could search for buy ice cream on Cleethorpes Beach, which is where I live. And then they would proceed to Oliver's on the seafront to conduct their transaction and buy their Mr. Whippy ice cream. But that started out with them having a desire. They expressed it, in this case, through the Google search engine. And then if Oliver's ice cream parlor bothered to create like a Google Maps listing and so on, they would appear in the results, and that would be an economic transaction. So that creates some money velocity. And that's on a micro level, right? But on a macro level, why would the velocity of money increase? Why would people transact more and transact faster? So it's not just about spending money, it's about that same dollar, circulating faster and faster. That's what velocity of money is. So the question is, why would people transact more and faster? Well, my answer to that is because a desire arises for something they want. And that, I think, is where the problem lies. So if you want to increase the velocity of money, you have to stimulate more human desires, which then want to be satisfied by the spending of some money. So if we think of the economy like a plumbing system in a house, this is the way I got my head around it when I was thinking about this. At any one time in my house, there is a certain amount of liquidity in the system, right? There's a certain amount of water in the system for optimum performance. So the water supply to your house and to my house, and the drainage system, it connects to the wider plumbing system. So it doesn't stop at my house, of course. There's an inlet and an outlet, drainage, and then the fresh water input. And the whole system, on a micro level, my house, and the macro level, the whole national plumbing system of the UK, is optimized for water flow. So the only time more water would be added to the system would be, say, if some new houses are built, and then they have their own set of pipes, which are empty to begin with, and then, I don't know how much a house plumbing system holds, but say, 100 litres at a time, 1,000 litres at a time, just say it's 100, then every house, when it's built, has 0 litres in the pipes, and then when it's filled for the first time, there's a 100 litre capacity that is added to the overall system. So when a new house is built, that's another 100 litres of water that needs to go into the system, right? So this is a metaphor for the money supply and the economy at large. So in an economy, instead of houses, we have businesses. Each business has a certain amount of liquidity, cash, like flowing in and out, cash flow. But what determines the cash flow rate or the velocity of money through those businesses? Well, my answer to that is the number and the size of the human desires they are able to fulfill. Here's a question though. Are all human desires satisfied across the entire world? Well, no. So why isn't the money moving faster? Why are all these unmet human desires not causing the velocity of money to move quickly? Why is it instead parked in assets as a store of value instead of being spent? What is that cash waiting for? Is it waiting for an opportunity? What opportunity? Well, I think it's waiting for an investable opportunity. So with so much cash around, getting funding should not be a problem for any business. Right? There's a mountain of cash that's been printed, and it's all desperate to be put to work. That's what seeking yield is. It's cash desperately wanting to be employed. So I'm suggesting that the velocity of money is closely tied to the rate of innovation in the economy. Right, a rapid rate of innovation would bring to market a flurry of new creative products and services that would then stimulate human desire and get that money transacting. Not only would the money flow faster and faster on the consumer end, but on the other end, venture capitalists, they would also greatly increase their deal flow. So they would end up investing in a greater percentage of the deals that come across their desk, if they were presented with genuinely innovative products. And if they were genuinely innovative, they would expect that to stimulate a human desire and cause a transaction. Now, this does ultimately bring us back to Bitcoin, crypto assets, and DeFi in general. So due to the historic, I'll call it stranglehold on the financial system, more than 100 years of innovation that would have otherwise been expressed, it's been pent up, like building like a pressure cooker. And now it finally has an outlet thanks to the permissionless nature of Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies, blockchains, and DeFi. The gatekeepers who previously acted as barriers between creators, innovators, and consumers, they're being disintermediated by everything from DeFi to NFTs. Now that individuals don't have to go through a central authority to get access to consumers who might want their creations, innovations, and so on, then those desires can be stimulated and the money can flow instead of being cooped up in hollowed out assets. And the final culprits in all this are the publicly listed companies. Decades ago, executives began to focus their attention or move their focus away from creating innovative products and services to stimulate cash flow and move that focus over to methods to pump up the company's stock price and basically get rich quick. So research and innovation budgets, they got cannibalized in order to free up cash to pump up the appearance of profitability on financial statements and also to engage in stock buybacks. That would be the one way to reduce costs, would be to just cut research and innovation. I would argue, based on this entire episode, that research and innovation is not a cost, right? That is a necessity to ensure the future success of your business. Now, while that works in the short term, like stock buybacks do pump up the company's stock price, it costs the company and the economy in the long run, because eventually innovation dries up. Consumers become tired of more of the same for less, and just the money flow slows down. That velocity of money slows down. And in an attempt to stimulate, there's that word again, stimulate the economy, which is consumers, the central bank prints money. It doesn't stimulate genuine desire. The problem is we don't need any more money. We never did. There was no shortage of money. There was a shortage of creative innovations that genuinely stimulated human desire. If that velocity of money then started to go crazy and money was printed as a response to that, great. But the lack of velocity of money and the lack of stimulation of desire, the lack of innovation and the lack of money flow, well, it's printing money is just going to have no effect on that whatsoever because it's not addressing the root cause. And that fundamentally is why I'm in the crypto education business. What my students end up doing with the knowledge that I impart to them, I would never have come up with myself. But that's the beautiful thing about empowerment. Once you're empowered, well, God only knows what you'll do with it. And the same goes for all of the innovative products, services, and innovation that could have happened. Apple is a good example of this. And Steve Jobs is famously quoted as saying, "People don't know what they want until you show it to them." No market research would have ever have come out with the results saying we need to design a very thin screen-like touchscreen device, the iPad, because that's what consumers want. No one knew they wanted that. That desire was latent. It was hidden. And it took Apple to create it, to innovate, to go beyond what anyone had imagined before, and then say, look at this thing. Star Trek style pad, and everyone went crazy for it. That desire was then stimulated and then money flowed. And that's what I'm saying is missing from the world. And that really, thanks to the permissionless innovation, permissionless nature of crypto and blockchain and DeFi, is why it's exploding at the rate that it is. So there we go. Bottom line, it's not an asset bubble. It's a cash bubble. So that's all for this week for the Wise Crypto Sunday special. Keep an eye on your inbox for next week's episode. But until then, it's me, Chris Coney, saying bye for now.